You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile we put Ghana first. And Daniel W.Y. Asari says, you see, Dr. Amoah's attempt at rationalizing clear signs of fraud by seeking to hide behind legal provisions is just annoying. How many of them could have made same money in private businesses? K. Amoah says, it is like Dr. Amoah never answers questions on the program. How is it that as a Deputy Minister for Finance, explaining why the 2 million was paid for the SkyTrain project is a problem? Gasma 1 says the fight against corruption can't be won without the posturing of the judiciary. I don't get that. Remember their stance when the Fourth Estate had sought to go public on the NS scandal, then the Cecilia Dapa issue. I'm sorry, but they are enablers. So your understanding may be different, but that you cannot say that the judiciary, that's what they do. Felix Apia Fabian says, Phillips Kwachio Fosu is solid. Unfortunately, the former Director of Communications at the Presidency, Eugene Ahin, failed to do likewise under the Eswell administration. Okay, so those are some of your views there. Thanks for them. Yakubu Ibn Chamba says that, Yakubu, that's too long. I can't read. I'd rather not attempt to read at all. So if you're sending a message you want me to read, keep it as crisp as you can. Okay, so I'm seeing some of your messages too long. I can't read the letters. I'm sorry about that. This program is brought to you by the candid sponsorship of Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN, everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way Insurance, dial star 165 hash on MTN to join My Way today. DBS Industries, Roofing, Papa Fie, Flamingo Paint, Simply Superior, Syntex Tanks. It's strong, it's tough. Activa International Insurance, our clients, our passion. Now, let's listen to just a small bit of the BBC documentary, and then we'll come back to the studio and have a certain discussion. Thank you very much. Let's hear this.
I'd been told that opioids were being smuggled across the border into Nigeria from Ghana. So I made contact with journalist Yaya Masuhudu. He's based in Tamale in northern Ghana, a city that's been hit hard by a recent rise in opioid use.
I was born and bred in Tamale. I've spent almost all my life in Tamale. These drugs are destroying families, destroying young men and women with potential who otherwise would have been able to help in developing this country.
The local chief is so concerned that he's given the go-ahead for a citizens' task force. Its aim is to find opioids on the streets and track down the dealers.
I'm Zike, and this is Chairman Jamal, Operation Leader.
Zike is a local radio presenter and a leader of the task force.
It's made up of. Our intelligence doesn't come in a one particular mode. Sometimes based on tip-off, sometimes based on the inhabitants of that particular village, sometimes a parent of the addicted children. They will give us.
Hi, it's Ravi.
Hi, Yaya. Good to see you.
Did you get the photo?
Don't call me Mr. Jamal. You are proving me what?
The man in yellow is just a small-time local dealer. But who is at the top of this chain? Who is making these tablets and shipping them by the millions into Africa? This is what the task force seized. This packet is all we've got to go on, but it does offer a few clues.
Hi, Srabi.
Hi, Aya. Good to see you.
Did you get the photos I sent you from the raid the task force did the other day?
Yeah, I have them pulled up on my computer now.
The product is called Tafrodol. The Ghanaian FDA have confirmed to me the product is illegal in Ghana. It's made of two substances. One is called tapentadol.
Thank you very much. So it's a long one, but we are unable to show you as much as we want to, suspect that most of you would have followed this in the course of the week and the FDA's reaction, and the Ghanaian company that's also pharmaceutical company that's been named and connected somewhat to importations that may include that. They too have issued a statement clearly stating that they are not involved whatsoever, and it appears there's somebody impersonating that company's name to do some wrong. Dr. Angela Dwamnabwaji also joins us of the ARC Foundation, but let's do it this way because we have run out of time. Let's go to Dr. Kwame Sapong-Asiedu. Kwame, in the next 5 minutes, help us. I know that's too little time, but help us understand what we are dealing with and why the authorities are unable to ensure that this doesn't come in.
I'll try and Samson. Yes, it's a very short time, but I'll try and do my best. The point is this. Let's set the premise straight. The combination of tapentadol and carisoprodol is lethal. In fact, tapentadol is what we call a Schedule 2 control drug. It's a Class A drug, but in a very high classification, with the likes of morphine, dimorphine, oxycodone, and stuff like that. So even in most countries, it's under a locked cabinet, even in pharmacies, where it has to be. That's the first thing. The second thing is it's highly addictive. So even for pain, it's hardly prescribed because there are less addictive substances than tapentadol. In fact, in my entire practice as a pharmacist of 25 years now, as a drug analyst of almost 20 years, and a biomedical scientist of almost another 50 years, I have only seen one patient on tapentadol. I am quite sure a lot of pharmacists who are listening to me, my colleagues, have not dispensed tapentadol in their practice just because of how addictive it is. The next thing is that the carisoprodol is a muscle relaxant that actually makes the actions of tapentadol worse. The final thing I want to say is that the combination of both products are not registered anywhere in the world. And therefore, they shouldn't be able to even move under the regulations of movements of drugs in international commerce, because the law is clear that you can only export a drug from one country to the other when it is registered in the country of origin for the condition that is going to be used in the country of receipt. So the only conclusion I come to is that anyone who produces this combination is out to harm and kill people. That's the fundamental conclusion. Now let's look at it this way. If you look at the United Nations Office of Drug and Crime statistics and their reports, you would realize that these drugs have also been implicated considerably in jihadist activity. And therefore, that also brings a security concern. The other thing is, if you speak to those who are on the field in Galamsey in Ghana, oft when they go on raids, they find this combination either used, the rappers, or on the miners. That is very dangerous for our national security, because what it means is that should we be able to even win the Galamsey war, two things are going to happen. The people would not have the money to fund their illicit activity, that's taking this Tafrodol product, And number two, the country doesn't have the rehabilitation facilities to deal with the level of addiction that it brings. Now, you ask the other question of how is it getting into the country? That's rather interesting, but I'll help you understand. You know, if you watch the documentary, you'd realize that Avio are clear that they cannot get the product into ports in Nigeria, but it's easy to get it into Ghana.
Yeah.
They are also clear by showing consignment notes that the products left the ports in India. They show the consignment notes with payments made. So there's clarity that the products left the port in India, which means the products landed in Ghana through legal routes, not through porous borders. So anytime I see that it's written that it's because of our porous borders in this instance, I beg to differ. And I'll tell you the other link.
Actually, the FDA said that in December, authorities intercepted a container en route to Nigeria, discovering substantial quantities of unapproved drugs, including 181 cartons of Royal 225 milligrams tapentadol and carisoprodol. Please, I can't even mention their names. And 90 cartons of tafradol, 120 milligrams. These illicit products were seized and destroyed following a court order in January of 2025. The FDA says that it has also taken action against local entities involved in the Avio Pharmaceuticals. Samo Pharma, a registered importer, has been directed to cease collaboration with Avio Pharmaceuticals and its exporter, Westfin International Private Limited. Then they talk about additional measures that they are taking.
Yes, and so that was where I was going to. That the products were seized by the FDA means that the products got through our ports. It was NACOC, Narcotics Control Commission, who had intel that led to the seizure. So that is complete confirmation that the thing is coming through our port, and that is scary. Do you know why that is scary, Samson? It is scary because customs are custodians of our ports, whether it's Tema, whether it's Kotoka, or whether it's Takra. When a medicine comes in, a medicine strictly is a red-channeled product. So the FDA have to be informed and NACOC have to be informed. That those containers got out of our ports without the know of NACOC of FDA means that there is some level of complicity from the customs because the drug didn't go through the right channel. That tells me that there isn't enough collaboration between the agencies that are supposed to secure our drug supply chain. Because for starters, the product went through the wrong route. And that shouldn't happen to a medicine. That tells me that there's a serious leak at our ports of entry when it comes to medicines entry. So there are serious questions to be answered between the customs and why they are not bringing these standard regulatory agencies, as in the FDA and NACOC, to supervise the clearance of these things and why they're going through the wrong route.
What went through your mind as you listened to the manufacturer speaking to the BBC guys who were pretending, at the time to be people who were interested in importing them?
Well, what went through my mind is this is a criminal. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. And the other thing that went through my mind was that they have criminal accomplices in West Africa and in Ghana in particular. Because something, don't get me wrong, the quantity of drug that is coming in, like the containers that were in transit, cannot be imported by the peddlers that you find on the streets.
That's
in
right.
Tamale. They cannot be imported by the people you find on the Galamsey side. They are people who are bringing these products in. And they are bringing it in for one reason only, to compromise our security.
From what you know, how widespread is the the use of these drugs by sections of the youth in this country?
Samson, that's why when this happened, if you ask your production, I refused to speak on this for a long time. It took them up to Wednesday to get me to speak. The reason was that we've been talking about this for 10 years, and it's very widespread. In 2019, for example, when like Bevlo Latte was then the African coordinator for counterterrorism. I had over a 2-hour conversation with him on these products. If you look, the FDA has intercepted some of these products in over-the-counter shops and on drug peddlers as far back as 2022, 2023. So these products have been on our market for a very long time.
All right.
And let me conclude this way, Samson, because it's important. What worries me, even though I think customs have a huge question to answer, is that when the FDA finds these products in over-the-counter shops, they are issuing administrative fines. I totally disagree with that.
Okay.
Because for people who have these products, they should be leading us to the source of the product, and they should be criminally prosecuted. So whether it's the Pharmacy Council or the FDA, when they are found, they need to be dealt with. So the use is widespread, and we are handling the problem badly. That's how I want to do.
All right. Dr. Angela Jomnabwaje, apologies because of how things have panned out. Now, let's get to know what sense you make of what is happening and what ought to be done from where you sit.
It's positively frightening. I mean, when I saw the report and I heard what the man said, I said, this is a murderer on the loose, and we shouldn't take it lightly at all. If these drugs have been on our markets for years, then it's because somebody is not doing their work. And, you know, our problem has been, for me, a lot of the fallouts that come because we are not able to coordinate our work properly. Okay, and it has been made clear by the speaker before me. We already have a drug problem on our hand. In a study of about 50,000 people, 35,000 of them were found to be young people at age 10 to 12, involved in these drugs. And then you also have to understand that when it's coming to the youth, and we have a very tight national youth policy, you've got to read it, Samson. We have our constitutional provisions about protection of children in Article 28. We have our Children's Act that talks about the state's responsibility towards protection of children and youth. What do we do with these things? We need to understand that the youth are the ones that are falling through the cracks, and we must take this as seriously as Galamsey. In fact, I'm thinking that if you take Galamsey as the number one problem, this should be the number two, because of the impact of the drugs, and secondly, because of the connections to the other illegalities, cyber crimes, money laundering, human trafficking, and all other kinds of illegal substances that are coming alongside this particular trade. And so it isn't something that we need to take lightly at all. I'm thinking that the needs... Yes, sir. I couldn't hear you, Samson. Right. I'm thinking that there needs to be some kind of immediate interministerial... You know, I get weary of committees, but sometimes they are necessary. Not just a committee, a working task force that will bring the different agencies together and have a level of response that takes it from the national to the local, because already there is local community organizing, but I think it needs to be guided so that, you know, it doesn't get out of hand. Secondly, the children involved. After we have done the law enforcement bit, how are we following up the children? At the local levels, there needs to be coordination with civil society, the churches. This is mission. I mean, I'm thinking about the impacts. I've studied a bit of mental health in my academic work. So the impacts are so frightening, and the fact that our rehabilitation capacity would not be able to meet this kind of a drug-related issue, that is for me the most frightening. So we need to also connect with maybe other countries that are able to show the best practices. When we get the victims, I call them victims of criminals. We get the victims, we need to be able to know how are we going to get the drugs out of them. Don't let us forget also that people, the young people involved in this, a lot of them are doing it because they are already suffering some mental health issues, anxiety, depression. They are using these drugs, as it were, to dull their pain. Some of them do it because of the hard work. Those who push the trucks, They take tramadol and they are to dull the pain they are going through because of their economic circumstances. Then there's the experimentation factor and all of that. We know that. How do we deal with them as victims, not as criminals, and find the best possible ways of getting them back into the net for help? For me, that is the most important. I'm telling the government with the gender ministry, the youth ministry, and the other agencies to immediately put something together, as the president has done with other committees and so on, and start tackling this with the ferocity that it deserves, because it is positively frightening. It is.
Angela couldn't have said it any better, right? This is a crisis. And people who get onto these things, they have no fellow feeling, they have no nothing. Absolutely. When they are involved in armed activities, in your community, when they are involved in sexual, predatory activities, they have no feelings whatsoever.
It is true. I mean,
that's a danger to our society.
There's a matter that requires the highest levels of governmental attention. And indeed, the president alluded to it in his State of the Nation address, that he is following closely how the appropriate authorities handle this matter. And that where...
Angela said he should just not follow.
But what I mean is that it is agencies and the government that will look into the matter. We must allow them to do their work. I believe they have capacity to do that work. As and when the work concludes and there's reason for government to take further action, trust that President Mahama will do so. Indeed, he alluded to it in the State of the Nation address, and it shows the level of urgency that he attaches to the matter. It is worrying, and all of us, I guess, have a role to play in ensuring that we defeat this canker. I mean, the urge to make illicit money has become so strong that people are willing to do anything, go to any lengths in order to make money.
We have seen armed robbery activity in broad day light.
And you cannot engage in that activity if you are clear-minded. Otherwise, it's not going to be possible to pull a gun and gun down another human being and strip him of his assets if you are clear-minded. Something clearly has to form that level of bravado and carelessness and wanton disregard for human life. So I am all for any form of investigation that exposes this matter. But more importantly, governmental action will be taken.
It should be treated as a crisis, an emergency.
Absolutely. And I agree with Angela when she says that it should be at par with the Galamsey matter in terms of its importance.
Yes, Bobby. The salmon farmer that was, being implicated, they issued a statement and they said, I'm quoting one portion, they said, we have never imported or traded in tapentadol or carousoprodol, either individually or in combination. We have always striven to be compliant with all industry standards and operated strictly within the Ghana Food and Drugs Authority and Pharmacy Council and all other relevant stakeholder regulations and guidelines. We have, on the basis of these false claims, taking the following action. They have engaged legal counsel to get the BBC to cease and desist. They have filed a formal complaint with the FDA, and they have prepared legal action against the BBC for defamation, among other things. Yes.
Samson, I'm looking at the other side, the victims, as Dr. Angela referred to. I think there could be a cause of action on their behalf, public interest litigation.
Okay.
This company that is saying it is not them. Because my little knowledge of the customs, because these, they said they were not brought through porous borders, they were imported. And so any RTI request will let us have the names that appear on the bills of lading.
Correct.
There's no payment that is done at the port that is cash. So the bank account from where the payment was made to the customs officers, we could trace these sources. We can follow the money and know who the beneficiaries are. Any public interest court action would get Ghana government some money, at least to build the centers, the rehabilitation centers. Because in America, there are instances where manufacturers of these drugs that have such harmful effects have been sued to the point of bankruptcy. The monies that have been made are distributed to the families that the children or whatever have suffered from these things.
Right.
And some have been put to public use. So I think that you can come together with a team to explore legal avenues of suing whoever is behind it, whether it's this company that is.
Thank you very much for that. My outfit is by Konatic Clothing. You can call them 0244 6767 32. 0244 6767 32. Steve, in some 30 seconds.
Okay, it's unfortunate I didn't get time, but I think everybody that has spoken this morning, to me, I agree, but then it's only looking at the systemic, the bigger picture. I think we should also descend to the community levels. Who are the major stakeholders? Parents, teachers. Now we are losing our sense of community.
Internally, the chiefs that have put a team together who are arrested.
So, and even education. Now parents leave the house, leaving the kids sleeping. By the time they come home, the kids have left after school, and they sleep even before their kids.
Right.
So I think these activities must be revisited in our localities, where other parents can even parent other kids. And also, we should also encourage more local production. Because importation of drugs are leading to some of these things, and also upscale their performances, the stakeholder institutions such as FDA, Standard Authority, and all. And I think as a state, all of us must begin to.
Thank you very much.
The advocacy.
My guests have been Felix Kwachio Fosu, Minister of State, Government Communications, Dr. Stephen Amoah, former Deputy Minister for Finance and MP in Shaiso, Bobby Bansing is a lawyer and a teacher of the law at the Ghana School of Law. Dr. Angela Jamnabwaje is Executive Director at the ACT Foundation, and Dr. Kwame Sapong-Asiedu is CDD Fellow in Public Health. Join me tomorrow, 2 p.m., as we continue with part 2 of the subject that I have been treating with the judges on reforming the judiciary system. And my guests will continue to be Her Ladyship Justice Afia Sawasari Boche and Lydia Osei Mafo, all of the Court of Appeal. Have a good afternoon.